Yo, you lie or you die, bro. You lie or you die. Yo, you lie or you die, bro. Let's see, you lie or you die. Welcome, everyone. My name is Fist Truck. So a game came out somewhat recently called Lies of P. This game is essentially if you took Pinocchio, put him inside of a Hot Topic, to which he says, I'm home. It also just so happens that this version of Pinocchio does nothing on his free time except watch Vadi lore videos and stuff like that. I played through it 5 times, and after doing it 5 times, I was like, you know what? Hey, maybe do a little beginner's guide that could help fresh people get into this game, especially considering that Elden Ring got a whole lot of people into this genre. Might help those that are more fresh kind of pick up the game more easily, because there are some things that it doesn't explain to you, and some things that the game does that I think is just kind of dickheadish. So without further ado, once again, my name is Fist Truck, and today I'm going to show you the ultimate and hopefully simple enough beginner's guide to Lies of P. But first, I begin this video by asking you to hit that subscribe button and to check out my second channel. A complete playthrough of Sekiro and Elden Ring is up there now. Check it out. So since this game is relatively fresh, I'm going to try and stay light on spoilers. I am still going to refer to areas by simple names such as Ironworks or Boulevard because they're mega fucking generic names and you'll know when you get there kind of thing. Bosses, I'll try and stay light on the spoilers, but you might see about the first 3 or 4 bosses, so that's just a heads up for that. So just to explain where I'm coming from, I tend to play games in a path of least resistance kind of way, at least for my first playthrough. I find what works for me with the least moving parts, which in this case means consumables and temporary buffs and all that kind of shit, and I stick with it until it doesn't work anymore. So in this game, it's pretty much Sekiro, and for me, I pretty much use the police baton for my entire first playthrough because it's quick and smack things hard enough relative to how fast it would swing. I also just never bothered with the weapon assembly stuff because I didn't need to, so I really can't speak to it. It seems cool though. I did make an axe that you can use like a dagger, which seems like a gigantic piece of shit, but I made it. So when coming up with this guide, which is after I played through the game 5 times, just to reiterate, and after I have experimented with most of the weapons in the game, my approach kind of was find a thing, use a thing, and kick ass. And hopefully it's straightforward enough for a new player to pick up and run with it. Alright, done with that. Now let's get this shit started. Step 1, you must choose whether or not you want to lie or pee. I always pee because real gamers don't have time to go to the bathroom. Also, I wanted to take a quick second to shout out Lies of P for having the most dumbass death message I think I've ever seen in a game. Bro, either you lie or you die, bro. Either you come or you rum. You shit or you spit. Step 2, choose which preset to use at the start. It honestly doesn't matter, but if we're going to be anal about it, the path of the cricket has one more advance than the rest of them, and that's going to be the stat we will eventually care about, but just to reiterate, it really doesn't matter which one of these you choose. Just pick whichever weapon tickles your fancy the most. Step me taking a moment to explain where I'm going with this. So being me playing through the game and thinking that all the bosses have an absolute shit ton of health, and you know what? For the amount of times that this game likes to have bosses that have 2 stages, with each of them having a health bar, yes, they do have an absolute shit ton of health. As an aside, the bosses are in general cool, fun, and I dig it, but when I've run into the 5th boss that's 2 health bars in a game of this size, which is say it took me about 20 hours to beat it on my first run, I can't help but roll my eyes. Anywho, on my 3rd playthrough, I decided to fuck around with a little fire weapon, and it turns out that, unlike Dark Souls or Elden Ring, elemental damage in this game feels absolutely busted. Like in Elden Ring, elemental damage can kick ass, and it is better than regular damage when used in the right situation, but like, it's not a huge difference, and I don't miss it when I don't use it. But in this game, this shit is fucking broken. Bosses go from being built like brick shithouse to being built out of breadsticks. So, going forward, that is what I'm going to focus on. Is this necessary to beat the game? Hell no. Like I said before, I used a fucking police baton for most of my first playthrough, with a great sword thrown into the mix every now and then, but I found it kind of not that great. But if you're newer to the genre and find yourself struggling, this guide might help alleviate some of the trouble. And now with that out of the way, step 3, for the sake of not going over each boss and to also somewhat do my best to not go crazy with boss spoilers, you gotta beat the first boss. Get to the hotel, past the hotel, then you'll be in the boulevard area. You will eventually run into a merchant in this area. You know you're at the right one because he's next to a bonfire. I have played through this game 5 times and I've still not paid attention to what they call a bonfire here, so it's a bonfire. Anywho, it turns out that this merchant happens to be carrying a fucking nuclear missile in his inventory. It just happens to be called the Electric Coil Stick. Step 4. After fighting a boss that's conveniently resistant to shock, or at least I think it is, after getting a weapon that does shock damage, continue on to the Ironworks area. Once you get to the Workshop Union entrance bonfire, continue up these stairs, go through this doorway, and then drop through this hole. Watch out, because you get ambushed by 2 of these mannequin puppets that have that thing that they never put in Dark Souls 3. By that, I mean poise. Once you've killed them, rip open the safe and get the Salamander Dagger. This hot butter knife will dumpster the ever-living fuck out of monsters, and when you attack enemies that are weak to fire damage with this thing, it'll hit as hard as a greatsword in like a third of the time. That's not even mentioning when you successfully burn an enemy, it also does damage like whoa. Step 5. I'm struggling with the order of these last 2 steps, so I'm just going to put this one here, but know that one piece of equipment you find with this step takes place after the next step. I haven't gone over stats all that much yet, though I will later, but advance is going to be our primary damage stat since it pups the shit out of our elemental damage like steroids in the Liver King. Much like Elden Ring and Dark Souls, you can alter the damage scaling of your weapons. In this case, you need cranks in order to do it. We're going to be needing 3 advanced cranks. 1 for each of our weapons, so that the advanced scaling for each of those weapons becomes insanely fucking high. We can find the first one in the hotel, which you can purchase off this NPC, but in order to do that, you have to first defeat the boss in the Ironworks area. The second one can be found in the Cathedral area, but you have to drop down this one hole here, and then the butterfly appears, which are this game's version of the crystal lizards. Just shake the shit out of them, and it'll drop the crank. And the last one we'll find on Rosa Isabel Street, which is the 6th area in the game, if I'm not mistaken. This one's really hard to miss. It's located under a bridge, and there's some Indiana Jones shit that takes place right as you're approaching it. You literally have to walk by it. There's no way you can miss this. Each time you get one of them, go to the blacksmith at the hotel and have her put them on one of the weapons. The order I did it in was the dagger, the mace, and then the spear. Speaking of which, step 6. This is potentially the most useless step, but when it comes to clutch, it's a big deal. The last weapon we're getting is the acidic crystal spear. Shortly after you fight the boss that's not shaped like a dude, which I'm going to tell you is a very rare occurrence in this game, so you'll know what I'm talking about when you get there. Anywho, you'll enter this woods looking area. Almost immediately after getting past the first bonfire, make a right. Watch out for these bear traps that make absolutely no goddamn sense because all the bears in this game are fucking jacked. I imagine this beefy bear over here is actually one that's putting down the traps, probably just for shits and giggles. Anywho, walk past the bear traps, watch out for this dude that tries to jump you, and get the acidic crystal spear. This one is kinda iffy for me, but it covers our bases for elemental damage types, works really well with dude type enemies, which first appear in the 7th area, and much like the dagger, it leaves a damage over time effect when you hit an enemy enough with it. Now I'll get into more detail as to why you do want to pick this one up later. Time to talk about stats. So for this specific bit, I'm not going to get too specific with the exact values for stats that you want to go for, just because you might want to spread them out differently than I did, and there are also only 6 stats to choose from, so it's not like you can have all that much variance really. Nonetheless, for damage, you're going to want to pump advance. I got mine to 20 as soon as I possibly could, but I'm relatively comfortable with this game at this point, so if you're fresh to it, you might want to go for more health or stamina sooner rather than later. Regardless, for these weapons we'll be using, motivity and technique will be mostly pointless. Focus advance and most enemies will melt way faster with these weapons than any heavy weapon I ever used in this game. Probably aside from like 1 or 2 boss weapons, but those are like kind of outside cases. Alright, so some tips and how you're going to want to play this build and really more just how you want to kind of approach the game. Well, I'm not going to lie, when I first saw this game, I thought this was going to be a Bloodborne clone. Like just fucking look at it. It's like Victorian and shit, just like Bloodborne is. And at least it seemed like in most of the promotional stuff, it was always in the night. But after playing through it, it actually turns out it's an everything clone, not just a Bloodborne clone. It keeps the regain mechanic from Bloodborne where you can smack enemies to get your health back, but in this game's case, it only works when you block an attack. It's got some Dark Souls in it with equip load, but more than anything else, this game is Sekiro because there's a timed block, and if you consistently nail it, you can activate your salad tossing move and do mondo damage. With that, this means that most every boss and half of the enemies in this game have combos that last way fucking longer than you think they will, and to be honest, more than they should. Get used to bosses doing that thing where they're like, wait, yup, not yet, I'm not gonna hit you, because they all do it. If you're familiar with Sekiro, then this is probably nothing new to you, but still, I think this game kind of goes a little bit too far with it. Now, regarding the weapons, there are pretty much 3 enemy types in this game, and each boss falls into one of these. And I'm going to use pretty generic terms here because I'm going off my own knowledge, and also I don't want to get too spoilery, though I really don't think it's spoilers, but still, you never know. We have puppets, monsters, and dudes. Use the mace on the puppets because electricity destroys them. Use the dagger on monsters because fire melts them. And use the spear, which, let's be real, that thing really just moves like a dagger. Use the spear against the dudes, though dudes are in a bit of a gray area. The amount of damage that these weapons will do to their respective enemy types, and considering how fast they swing, they feel absolutely broken to me. When fighting dudes, go between the dagger and the spear. Once you poison them with the spear, then burn them with the dagger. I do not believe the status effects can stack at the same time, but it seems like you can build one up while another one is going off. So once one is down, the other can go up. and you just kind of keep the damage over time effect going on. Some tougher enemies and what feels like every boss have an absolute shit ton of health, so taking advantage of elemental damage and status conditions just kind of takes a mega dump on most of them and sort of evens the playing field a bit. Eventually you can use your grinder tool to imbue your weapons with specific elemental damage, but for a very long time it's only once per bonfire arrest, and it only gives you the effect for a relatively small window. Using these weapons as opposed to just throwing temporary buffs on them gives you all the effect all of the time. Wow! There's never a point in the game where they throw all 3 enemy types at you at the same time, so you can pretty much always have the right tool for the situation. And much later on, they give you upgrades where you can carry more than 2 weapons at a time. Not that you ever need to. Lastly, with some good old exploration, you'll definitely have enough upgrade materials to keep all the weapons at the same level when you need them. And much like Dark Souls and Elden Ring and stuff, you can find boxes that allow you to upgrade the inventory of shopkeeper, so you can just buy upgrade materials. Alright, that wraps this one up. I hope everybody enjoyed this adventure into a new game. And as time goes on, we'll be seeing more games pop up into the channel. I got a couple of requests for Lords of the Fallen, which I'm going to be genuinely shocked that that game apparently isn't ass. I only ever played the original one from like 2014, and that thing was a piece of shit. So I got it, I'm playing it, and hopefully I like it enough to want to make videos about it. But anywho, if you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, or do whatever it is that you would like to do. And until next time, don't forget to always wipe before you shit or spit.